Thank you. Gentlemen, I'm aware of the history and of the traditions and of the politics that have shaped the public service agencies in this city over many, many years. And I agree with you all that we certainly have the finest police and fire departments, Port Authority police, anywhere in the world. And as you said, Mr. Sheirer, they're the proudest. But pride runneth before the fall. And I think that the command and control and communications of this city's public service is a scandal. It's...
I would ask the audience, you're just taking time away from the hearing when you do that, so please do not.
It's not worthy of the Boy Scouts, let alone this great city. It's a scandal that you, as the emergency preparedness manager, did not have line authority to select, find the best technologies of radios and dictate what would be procured to solve these problems instead of being a kind of an auxiliary advisory service. I think it's a scandal that the fire commissioner has no line authority. It's a scandal that there's nobody that has clear line authority and accountability for a crisis of the magnitude that we're going to have to deal with in the years ahead. It's a scandal that after laboring for 8 years, the city comes up with a plan for incident management that simply puts in concrete a clearly dysfunctional system. I would like to hear from each of you why there shouldn't be a commissioner of public safety with line authority, why there shouldn't be a procurement agency that can solve these interagency problems. It's not rocket science. It's just overruling the pride of the individual agencies. Why there can't be regional commanders, joint commanders, like the military has. If something, you already have it partially with the Port Authority. Something happens at LaGuardia, the Port Authority is the on-scene commander. Why can't you have the same thing so that you don't get into fistfights over who's in charge when it's an ambiguous situation? Whoever is in Tribeca, well, he is designated, whether it's the police chief or the fire chief or whether on any incident until it becomes clear, and then he makes clear line authority. Why do we have to live with this lack of line authority and this hope that everybody's going to get along and work it out? Start.
Sure, if I may. Well, I have to say, there is no lack of line authority in the New York City Police Department. If I tell one of my commanders to do something and he refuses, he will be terminated.
I agree with that. I'm talking about above that.
The authority that the police commissioner has is very different than the fire commissioner, and I'll let Tommy talk about that. But that has a lot to do with the laws of New York City and the negotiations of unions and other things. In the New York City Police Department, I appoint every commander from captain up, from captain to deputy inspector, inspector, deputy chief, assistant chief, bureau chief, chief of department, and first deputy.
You missed my point. I'm not criticizing any of the agencies. I think they do have very fine line authority and accountability. I'm talking about amongst the agencies, like in the war today in Iraq, we have the Central Command has the top line decision making about who's going to do which task. Most other big cities in this country have a public safety commissioner with line authority to say you're in charge of this. You don't have to read through and get a Talmudic scholar to interpret what the core competencies are in a given situation. It's not complex.
Well, I would say this. I can't go through each individual ones, but I know most of the other big cities. They don't have public safety directors. Chicago does not. LA does not. Miami does not. New York City does not. And I think the reason being, and from my perspective, is line authority has to do with individual departments, and we do two different, very separate and apart jobs. When we have to respond to jobs that we're going to work on together, then there has to be a determination what jobs each of us will handle. But we don't have line authority across the board because we're not the same type of agency. It's not like the military. The military is all focusing on one operation. We're not. We don't do that. I don't do stuff that fire department does. I do other stuff. and the fire department does their thing. Well, if we have to work together, well, then so be it, and we come up with conclusions on what the specific things we will do with those different functions, such as the most recent order by Mayor Bloomberg and the 1997 order by Mayor Giuliani. Then, when those determinations are made, who's going to do what, who's going to act as the event or incident commander at the scene, I have a very simplistic rule. If my guys don't do what they're supposed to when they get there, then they'll answer to me, period. That's command accountability, and that's the way we operated.
I couldn't disagree with you more. I think that one of the criticisms of this committee has been statements like you just made, talking about scandalous procedures and scandalous operations and rules and everything else. There's nothing scandalous about the way New York City handles its emergencies. We had strong leadership with the mayor, we had strong leadership with the fire commissioner, and the same with the police commissioner. When you talk about line authority of the fire commissioner, I don't know what you mean. There's a chief of department that's responsible for the operations and the safety of the firefighters and all the chiefs at the scene. The fire commissioner is not in charge of that. He's in charge of everything else. He's in charge of deciding what money gets spent on resources, what's available, decisions on procuring radios and getting money for training, building new firehouses, getting equipment, the best equipment we can get, clothing, everything else. Those are decisions made by the fire commissioner with the interests and the conditions he has to deal with, the budget, with a strong mayor decides what's going to be. There's been talk about having a public safety commissioner in New York City in the past. We went on with that for years. That people think you should, people think you shouldn't. That's a management decision that the mayor should decide whether he believes it's necessary. When you have a strong police commissioner, a strong fire commissioner, good fire chiefs, good police chiefs, you don't need that. And you make it sound like everything was wrong about September 11th or the way we function. I think it's outrageous that you make a statement like that. We had thousands of fires, thousands of fires where our operations work, where we work together. Hundreds of collapses and operations where we work together with the police department. Yes, where there are isolated incidents where a police officer, an aggressive emergency service guy, and an aggressive guy for our rescues is trying to take control of an incident. Yes, and we worked all of those out. OEM came in. OEM was that arbiter for issues like that. When we couldn't agree with OEM went to the mayor, and the mayor made a decision. That was strength and that was leadership, and that's what we did. And we proudly did it, and it goes throughout both departments from top to bottom.
I want to add several things. On September 11th, there was no more coordinated effort than there could have been. And with all the criticism that has been made, I have yet to hear a single instance where anybody shows me anything that where the agencies did not work together and coordinate their efforts. I strongly urge, I have a very strong background in communications, and I urge the Commission to take a very close listen to the tapes on all the various agencies and very carefully listen to them. Because there's a lot of cross communications regarding relaying information, conferring with each other, that I haven't heard about until I sat down and listened for 6 hours, because I keep hearing that we didn't do that. In terms of radio systems, if you can find a way for us to get more spectrum, please do, because public safety has been fighting in this city since 1989 when I was in communications to get additional radio spectrum, to allow for greater interoperability, to provide additional frequencies to meet the needs of the public in this city, to provide the fire department with additional fireground handy-talkie channels for a changing world. And we were unsuccessful. But it wasn't unsuccessful for a lack of trying. It was unsuccessful because the bureaucracy that awards those frequencies has chosen to give them to media, has chosen to hold them away from public safety, has chosen not to address the issues, and hopefully now we're very close to seeing that addressed. Right now, a few days ago, this city had a drill, and they used a piece of equipment called the TRP-1000. The TRP-1000 is there because we sought to find a way to have the fire department and the police department to be able to communicate. They are on 10 different frequencies. that you can't talk to each other. There's no way right now, with the exception of this new piece of equipment that was tested last week, for them to talk. And it takes time to develop, it takes time to procure, and with the help of DOJ, we did that. But to say that we haven't done that, that's just not true. That's just not true. There are very few incidents where the police department and the fire department have to turn to OEM as an arbiter. We had anthrax incidents day in and day out for a period of time. In one day, we had 8 anthrax incidents. The police department and the fire department worked hand in hand, where the FBI should have been the incident commander. But we handled that in the city, and they worked hand in hand. There was no problem. And there is not necessarily a problem. It's an individual problem. But we're no different than any other city. And if you think we are, then you're really being foolish. But I think you should take a very good, careful look on 9/11 and see what issues of coordination, or lack thereof, existed. Because I have yet to be shown a single concrete instance. I've heard rumor, I've heard speculation, but when you dig at the facts, you find that is wrong.